Hello everyone, welcome back to another session of Selenium training. So in this session we are going to see how to handle checkboxes and radio buttons on a web pages. So this is very easy concept, just that you have to use click operation to click checkbox or a radio button. And also you can check whether the radio button is selected or not by using isSelected method. And also you can use isEnabled method to check whether that is enabled or not. So for different web pages or different applications, you might see that radio button is disabled. That means it's grayed out. Or for a checkbox is grayed out and you cannot click or deselect anything on the checkbox. So for that purpose, you can use isEnabled method to check whether it is enabled or not, and based on that, you can either select or deselect that radio button or a checkbox. So this is very simple concept. You have to use only two methods frequently for your test. And if you want to get how many radio buttons are present, and if you want to print all those, you have to create a list web element and print all those, and you can also get a size of those radio buttons. Okay, now let's quickly jump to Eclipse and see an example, right? So let me create a class here. I'll call this class as radio buttons example. Okay, so let me write main method. So as usually, let's take let's already take which we did previously. So let me take this simple. So I'll be doing for radio buttons. We'll be taking a sample web page that we are already discussing. So this is the page. So we will do one simple test here. What we will do is we will try to select a mail here, and after that we are going to print all the radio buttons present on this web page. Okay, so how to do that we have already discussed previously. To find the radio buttons, or I mean to if you want to find the links which are all present, we are using tag name of a, right? But here for radio buttons you don't have any kind of tag here, but instead you have a type as radio. So if you observe carefully here, this is an input tag, but the type is radio, right? So using that you can get it. Okay, now first let's click on mail and then we will see how to get the number of radio buttons. Okay, so let us take it using XPath / input, and my radio button is having ID as a unique, right? So I'll take @ID is equal to gender male. Okay, spelling mistake input. Okay, now let's put it here. Driver dot find element of by dot XPath, right? We have taken XPath, and let's paste the XPath here. So for clicking on radio button, you have to use a method called click. Okay, so we are just clicking on the radio button. So next what I have to do is I want to find number of radio buttons on this web page. So how to do that? First I need to find the type as a radio button, right? So I have input, I'll be taking type is equal to radio, so that I'll get how many elements are present with the type radio on this web page. So let me take type is equal to radio, right? So let me copy this radio and give it here. So you can see how many, one of two, that means two radio buttons are present. So we can even print those values. Okay, print those values in the sense here for input you have a label basically as name. This label is defined as a separate thing, but generally we can place it in input tag itself. But we identify the ID value. Okay, so let's store this in a list first. Let me take list. web element, and I'll call it as radio buttons is equal to driver dot find elements. We have to use find elements and not element because we are finding multiple elements by dot. So we are taking XPath, right? So take dot XPath of, okay. So just give semicolon and save it. Now import this. So initially, if you try to import web element, you can see here import web element and the list. Okay. Now let's get the size of it. Okay. So radio buttons dot. Okay. Now let's do one thing. We will use for each loop to get those. I'll take for web element. I am declaring one more element, print radio. Okay, and colon. So I'll explain this in detail later. Don't worry about this. And here you can give radio buttons. Okay. So what it will do this is it will just try to navigate through each and every one. It will try to get the value. So what I'll do, I'll store it in a string, or let's take directly system.out.println. Okay. So we have print radio, right? Print radio dot. We have to use get attribute and get the value of ID. So I know that these gender male, gender female, both are unique values for each different radio buttons, right? So I am trying to get the ID. So let's q dot get attribute of, in double quotes, just give ID. Okay. Now it will print me all these two values, and also if you want to print the size, you can print using this radio buttons dot. Okay. Okay, first let's print these values. So this page will be opened and the male radio button will be clicked, and then it will just print me the values. See, it printed me gender male, gender female. So by this I will know that these two are the values present on a web page, right? Okay, now to print number of radio buttons, just simply say system.out.println, right, number of radio buttons on a web page. Okay, just give radio buttons dot size. You have a method called size. Just give that method. Okay, and let's run this program now, so that it will give me number of radio buttons, and then here I am printing those radio buttons. Printing the radio buttons here, getting number of radio buttons. Okay, so let me run this. It should select male, and then it should give me the values. Okay, so observe here the number of radio buttons on a web page 2, and those two are printed. This way you can test your web application to find all those things. Okay, so this is all about radio buttons. If you want to see after selecting the radio button, if you want to see whether it is selected or not, then you can use a method called isSelected. So I'll show you how to do that. So if, write in a if condition so that you can find it. So before that, let's do one thing. We will store this gender male in a web element. Okay, web element male select is equal to, we stored in a web element. We already discussed this topic earlier. So I'll say male select dot click. Okay, now I'll call if male select dot is selected. Okay, is selected, and I'll print male radio button is selected. Okay, else I'll print So if you want to do system.out.println, just type syso and press control space. Syso control space. Then you will get all the system.out.println. Okay, now I'll write mail radio button is not selected. Okay, now let me run this program and see what's the output. So you can see now mail radio button is selected. So that way you can check whether the button is selected or not, and you can perform your test as per that. Okay, that's all about radio button. Now let's see checkbox. So I'm going to create a new class, checkbox example. Okay, let me rename it CHE. So okay, let me do one thing. Let me take the same thing. So for checking the radio buttons, I have taken one more portal. I'll just show you that. Okay, what's wrong here? Okay, let me copy this again. So I have one more portal here. I have taken this internet hero app, herokuapp.com. So here you have different kind of web elements. So here I'm selecting drop down. So I'll give, sorry, it's not drop down, checkbox, right? So checkboxes. So I'll be taking this example. Okay, now if you land to this page directly, you will be seeing one checkbox is selected and other one is not selected. So what we will do is we will select the checkbox 1 and we will deselect the checkbox 2. So deselection and selection have the same method, click. Okay, so let's identify this element first. So checkbox 1, so input type is equal to checkbox and it's a checkbox 1, right? And also you have one more checkbox. So you have an text here. So instead of that, you can even take index. As I discussed in earlier session, you can see the XPath can be identified using index as well. Let me show you that. So you can see here. So here I can provide attribute is equal to checkbox, and then first checkbox first index and second checkbox second index. Okay, so let's see how to write that. So let me go here. So I'll say slash slash input. Okay, at the rate type is equal to checkbox. Okay, see I'm getting two checkboxes, right? Now what I have to do, I'll place this XPath in parentheses and I'll give one index of one, which will give me first checkbox. Okay, so let me write here driver dot find element of by dot XPath of dot click, right? So now I have to select checkbox 2. So before that I will check if checkbox 2 is selected or not. If it is selected, then I will unselect it, right? So let me take the index first. So what is the index 2? So you'll be getting the second checkbox, right? So what I'll do, if you can even write like this driver dot, or let's take in a web element as discussed, web element checkbox underscore 2 is equal to driver dot find element of by dot xpath of, write this, close the bracket. Okay, so double quotes. So let's take this also into a separate web element. Checkbox underscore one is equal to, so let me remove the click here and then apply it here. Checkbox dot click. Okay, now what I am going to do, I am going to check whether checkbox 2 is clicked or not, right? So I'll call if checkbox 2 dot is selected. So is selected. If it is selected, then I am going to deselect it. That means I have to click on that again. Dot click, right? That's it. So we need not write else statement, because once it identifies that it clicked the checkbox 2, it will deselect it. Okay. So let us write one statement also here. Checkbox 2 is checked already and unchecking it. Okay. So now observe carefully and let's run this program. So first checkbox will be clicked, that means it will be checked, and the second checkbox will be unchecked. So that's the test that we are doing right now. So for that we used isSelected method to find whether it is selected or not. Seems like the web page is bit slow. Looks like the website is down. So you can try to run this program. I'll be giving this program into the description box, as well as I'll be pushing this code to repository and give the repository link in the description box. You can practice. So this is two very simple examples of checkbox and radio buttons. You can practice it and make use of these methods, and we'll see you in the next session. Thank you and have a nice day.